Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Erickson DIY, Erickson Do It Yourself. Another episode of Everyday Investors, Everyday People Doing Great Things. So today with me, I have Michael Booker. First off, I just want to say thank you, dude, for doing this interview, out of taking the time out of your busy day. You know, this guy was my platoon commander back in the day. Great mentor, great leadership skills, and then I definitely look up to this guy. So I'll let him introduce himself, give a little small spiel on his bio and his come up, and then we'll move on and ask a few questions about him and flipping houses. So I'll pass it off to you.
Sounds good, man. Thanks for having me today. I appreciate it. Got a little intro from you. I was going to mention that I was your platoon commander back in the day. It's awesome that we're still in touch, and you're still going to school, staying in the Marine Corps, and you became an officer, which is awesome. So super proud of you.
Thank you.
You never stop. But here you are doing videos for YouTube, even though you're doing that at the same time.
You're a big part of why I do this stuff. So.
Ambition, man. You got a lot of ambition. But real quick, so I was in the Marine Corps. I went to school at NAU before that, became an infantry officer, did that for 4 years. And since then, when I got out about 4 years ago, I started getting into real estate as my first job when I got out. Did that, and I still do that to this day, but I've also kind of pushed forward into focusing more on flipping homes. So not doing as many transactions anymore, just kind of focused on the flipping, but doing the regular deals when they come to me, basically. So
Awesome. That's about it. Awesome. So I guess we'll start off with the question. So the first question, you went from Marine to real estate agent, and now you're flipping houses. So why the profession change, and what made you go towards real estate?
So that's a really easy question for me because long story short, my mom is my biggest influencer, my biggest mentor, and she's been doing real estate since I was 10 years old. So I've been around this for a long time, and I watched her kind of do the same path, going from, hey, I'm going to do real estate, to I'm actually going to start flipping houses and do that as well. So when I was getting out of the Marine Corps, I was like, what am I going to do? We all think we have like a great plan, but we don't always have a great plan. So I sat there, I'm like, well, can't go wrong with real estate. Like, I already know the business. I've got somebody that can coach me on it and, help me understand it. So why not give that a shot? And I like the idea kind of, when I transitioned from the Marine Corps kind of, I wouldn't say owns you, but they kind of own you. You're going to work as hard as they need you to work, right? That's okay. That's what we do. But on the civilian side of things, I'm like, hey, if I'm going to work this many hours or whatever, I want to be in charge of what I'm taking home as far as money, money for my time, basically. So I said, hey, real estate, if you work, super hard and you put the effort into it, you'll make a good amount of money. It's all about how much effort you put in is what you get out of it. So that appealed to me as well. So I basically called my mom and was like, hey, I'm going to do real estate. What do you think? She's like, yeah, give it a shot. So that's how I kind of got into where I'm at now.
Awesome. Why flips and not, say, for example, wholesaling or, Airbnb or, luxury homes and things like that?
So there's a million things you can do in real estate, and I'm open to all of it too, but it all just takes time and experience. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
At this point, I've been doing regular real estate first. Flipping is kind of my next stepping stone. I plan to do this for a long time, potentially forever. I eventually will get into, the luxury market, flipping more expensive homes, bigger margins, having rental properties, like you just mentioned, Airbnb. I would love to do that, just don't have the means at this time. But eventually I think I will get into most of those things. I would say that I also don't want to spread myself too thin. I feel like a lot of people that are most successful, they may, have a little bit of each thing, but they kind of emphasize one that's really their specialty, Like I know somebody that's got a huge, I don't know what you'd call it, empire, so to speak. But I mean, he's got roughly 30 Airbnbs in Scottsdale that he owns. They're all really high-end homes, and they're each bringing in a ton of money. And then he also does it for other people. He has a whole company that manages other people's rentals. But my point is, he's very focused on that. he does do a little bit of flipping here and there, but he's very focused on that, So it's like, I really like the flipping side of things. I would like to grow that business before getting into too many other things.
Awesome. When people get out and transition out the military, a lot of times it's hard for them to find a stable ground. So what do you think was the biggest factor that helped you be successful and helped you, push forward and find your why in real estate and helped you move on?
Yeah, so that's a good point. When you get out, no matter what plan you have, even if you have a job lined up, whatever, I think everybody kind of struggles with missing that purpose that they had in the Marine Corps, or in the military, I should say, no matter what branch you're in. Just because you're used to going to work, seeing the same people every day, you're all on the same schedule, living the same lifestyle, you've got the camaraderie, you go through a lot together, and then you get out, and it's like, okay, now what? Like, even if I have this new job, you're with like these new people that you don't really know if you can even relate to, that they also probably look at you like you're kind of a weirdo because, excuse me, but you get out of the military and you're a little bit different than like the average civilian. So like you could be the 26-year-old new guy at this sales company, and then you've got the 22-year-old that just came out of college, and you're trying to do something the same way, and it's just like it doesn't click. So anyway, I think it does take time to adjust. Eventually you do figure it out no matter what you're doing. For me, I struggled with it for a long time. I mean, I was struggling to get started. It's really tough to get started in real estate, but I did catch some momentum pretty early on. I worked as hard as I could, and I started getting deals, kind of back to back, which was awesome. And I still even was feeling like, man, is this really what I want to do? But it does take time. And I did eventually realize like, hey, I am doing something to give back. Like I'm helping someone that needs a place to live. They want to buy a house, you know what I mean? Or they want to sell a house. And it's like, you kind of got to change your perspective a little bit on what you're doing for the community versus, you're in the military, you're serving your country, you're doing that. You get out, well, whatever you're doing now, you kind of have to change your perspective and understand that you are giving back in another way, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So I had to keep that in mind and like remind myself, like I am doing something that's helpful for people,
For sure. So for you, what kind of, as for people aspiring to be, real estate agents or flippers, like what kind of successful habits did you, undertake and take on with you that helped you, in your profession?
So I would say staying busy, first of all. It's making sure you're using your time wisely, because in this profession, whether it's regular real estate or flipping houses, you do have a lot of free time on your hands if you allow yourself to have it. Mm-hmm. So as a new realtor, you don't really have any business. You're trying to get out there and get business. You can work as hard as you want trying to find it, or you can sit around at home and just complain and be like, why is nobody calling me yet? Like, why am I not busy? I don't get it. Like, I'm a realtor. Call me. Like, that's not how it works. So I would say making sure you're staying busy, whether it's training, whether it's building your network with friends in the industry or mentors that you could possibly have. If you're out there trying to do regular real estate, I mean, anything that's a lead generating activity, whether it's open houses, knocking on doors, cold calling, like I did all that stuff and a combination of it constantly to build my business. And then getting into flipping, it's kind of the same thing. Whereas let's say I just finished a house, because at this point I'm only doing one at a time. So I finished one house, I get it on the market. I've got a little bit of downtime while I'm waiting for a contract, and then I'm waiting for it to close, and then I find my next house. So during that downtime, you don't want to get complacent. No matter where you're at in your career, just don't get complacent. Basically stay busy and don't accept where you're at, because it's a little easy to do that, which will set you back,
Makes sense. So for you, what is one or two mistakes you've made along the way that you think others would be able to benefit from hearing about?
So I'll give it, since we're kind of jumping back and forth between regular real estate and flipping, I'll do kind of like one of each. The regular real estate, I'd say one thing that's really important is setting boundaries with your clients, which is probably something you wouldn't expect to hear. But it's one thing that kind of pushed me away from doing regular real estate for a while, is people are so stressed out when they're buying a house or selling a house. like statistically, it's the number 3 most stressful thing you'll do in your life between a death in a family and a divorce. Next is a real estate transaction. So people are going through a lot of stress and they're very emotional, basically, is a good way to put it.
It's definitely one of those big decisions in life.
Oh yeah, for sure. So, I mean, no matter what, buying or selling, people are like constantly needing your help, first of all, to do the business, but then you're also kind of like their friend throughout the process. They're confiding in you, like, hey, am I doing the right thing? Is this a good house? You know, late night phone calls like, hey, is everything good? It's like, yeah, everything's good. Like, no worries. So I would say setting boundaries with your clients will make you more successful, give you some of your time back so that you're not just 100% always focused on little things, if that makes sense.
Makes sense.
Does that make sense? Like, your client's calling you, you can call them back in 20 minutes and it's going to be okay if you got to take care of something else first. So I would just say basically manage your time and your expectations with your clients is really important. And then on the flipping side, that's a little bit more tricky because there's a lot of mistakes you can make. There's a lot of mistakes you can make. I think picking a house is just the most important thing. People kind of jump into it not really fully understanding a market. And I think you need to kind of focus on one place to begin with. Like, for example, I'm really focused heavily in one zip code that I know like the back of my hand by this point because I've been doing work in there. And I feel like that's really important. Some people will be looking at a giant market and they don't really know the comps. They don't know the market. So don't do that. Don't be that person. That's what I would say. Like, make sure you understand the market that you're getting into before you say, hey, I could buy this house at this price, put this much into it, and I'm sure I could sell it for this much. Because sometimes you think that, but you really don't know. And then all of a sudden you bought a house, you put this money into it, and you can't even break even. So I would just say know your market. Just know your market before you decide to start flipping houses. Find a spot that you're comfortable in, that whatever, that's close to where you lived, wherever you can afford, and really narrow it down for your first few flips, at least.
Awesome. All right. So next question is, if you could start all over again, what would be one thing you do differently?
What would I do differently? Besides setting expectations with clients, for a regular realtor, I would say don't spend too much time training. That's something that I see all the time is people, I saw it when I first started. I switched through a few different companies, but I'd see new agents coming in, leaving all the time. They would spend so much time training that they weren't generating business. Like, they feel like they got their license. Now they got to do this class on contracts. Now they have to do this class on home inspections and this and that. And they spend so much of their week training, they feel like they're accomplishing something, which they are. They're getting knowledge, but at the same time, you got to balance that with starting to build your business. Because like I said, you have to be out there grinding, making phone calls, door knocking, open houses, that stuff. If you don't do enough of that, you're going to fail. You know what I mean?
For sure. I remember like going through, real estate school, and they were saying like the statistics of like a first year agent, leaving is like 80%. Only like 20% stick around after the first year because they find out how like difficult it really is, and it's not easy because, in the media they portray all these real estate agents making buku dollars, and really it's not like that unless you're really out there grinding. Yeah. So getting on that topic, what motivated you through those struggles, and what helped push you through those worst times in that first year or two of doing real estate?
I'll be honest, like basically fear of failure. I mean, that's the biggest thing, fear of failure. I don't want to fail at anything. And I understand like failure sometimes is good for growth and everything like that, but I didn't want to be the statistic that you're talking about. Like, hey, I tried real estate for 6-7 months, made no money, I'm going to go do something else now. I didn't want to be that person, especially because I had the goal of moving into flipping. Like, that's where I really knew I wanted to get to. So I said, hey, like, this sucks at first. It wasn't pretty. Like, it's not easy, but I didn't want to fail. So I just did what I had to do to get out there and make it work, really. Just setting your mind to it, it's
for sure. Mindset for sure is a big part of everything.
for
So
sure.
for this next part, let's have you talk us through your first flip deal. You know, from beginning to end, the good, the bad. You know, how you went about searching for it. What made you think, hey, this is the one? The numbers, if you don't mind sharing, and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. So my first one was pretty interesting, to say the least. There was a lot that went into it. I was doing regular real estate at the time, and then I kind of got discouraged from trying to find a flip house because they're not easy to find. Like I've said, you got to make sure it's the right house, the right margins, all that stuff. And not to mention, there's also 50 other people in the area trying to do the same thing you are. So when a good deal pops up, I mean, you got to be there right in the beginning, buy the house if you like it, and if the numbers work, you know what I mean? So I was looking for a long time, couldn't find the right one, kind of put it on the back burner. I'm like, all right, I'll just keep doing regular real estate. Like, that's fine and whatever. And then this house popped back up that I'd seen like 6 or 7 months ago. They canceled the listing because they couldn't sell it. And then it popped back up. I went to see it and I'm like, you know what? Like, for some reason, this isn't selling right now, but it's going to be a great house when I'm done with it. So I was there within like an hour of it coming back on the market. Called the agent, talked to them, and got a pretty good deal on the place. I can't remember what it was listed at, to be honest. But roughly I got it, I think around 470 is what I bought it for. And I was thinking I could probably sell it for around 700. So that was kind of the goal, which is pretty high goal, but I ended up getting really close to that, honestly. So bought that house. Huh?
Shoot for the stars.
Yeah, I mean, why not? Like, that was the thing, that I was a little nervous about, because you're always a little nervous. At least I am still, even though like I'm closing on a house this Friday. You were actually there with me for the home inspection.
Oh yeah.
So you've seen it. And it's like that one. There's always little things like you don't feel confident in it until it's done, and you just got to believe that it's going to sell, because otherwise you drive yourself nuts. Like, hey, some people might not like this. They might not like this about it, whatever. But it's not the perfect house for everybody. That's what you just have to remember. As long as you've got the numbers and you can make it work, it works usually. But so basically running through that. So I got the house, I did the remodel, put about close to 100,000 in that house. This is a full, take everything out and replace everything with new. So it's a full remodel. And I went on the market with that one, got an offer on the first day without the people even seeing it.
Wow.
It was a FaceTime call. So this agent's in there. He's in there for like an hour because I was actually at the house. I left, let him go in there. He's doing FaceTime. And I'm like, oh, great. Like, that's probably not going to be a real strong buyer. And then I get a call and he's like, hey, my people want this house for full price. And I was like, okay, what's the catch? Like, it was just too good to be true. And it kind of was. They had a contingency. They had another house to sell in another state that wasn't even on the market yet. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. Like, it's the first day on the market. I'm not going to risk it for these people that haven't even sold their house yet. That's going to take too long, whatever. Then I actually so that didn't work out. I had a couple more people interested. I was under contract twice. They both canceled over different negotiating things. Long story short, I'm not even going to go there. But so I'd have the first one didn't work out. Then I had two people that wanted it. They ended up canceling. And I was super discouraged. Like, I mean, talk about like a rough first flip house. It really was. Like, it did not go smoothly. And then in the end, I ended up selling it to the people that wanted it on day one, which is so ironic. Yeah. Because like at the time, I'm like, I guess I was a little overconfident, whatever. I'm like, no, I'm not waiting that long to sell this house. I need to get it sold. And
you don't want to tie it up when you could potentially have other people come through and get it.
Exactly. But because then I had one person cancel, then I had a second person cancel. After all that, we're kind of lined up right with the timeline of these first people that wanted it and their contingency. So anyway, it worked out. They ended up getting it. I think I sold it for $685. So pretty big profit on that one, which is what I usually look for. that's just kind of my strategy, is looking for a big chunk of cash, basically, so that if something does go wrong, you can't lose. You know what I mean?
For sure.
There's multiple ways to do it. I mean, some people want to do smaller margins and higher volume and just turn them quick, and but at this point, what I'm doing is looking for the bigger margin and just doing one at a time until I can build up capital. So
how much time elapsed in between getting it in the market and finally getting it sold?
that one was rough. I'm trying to think.
Because usually the magic number is like what, 3 months. You want to try to get it out of there, or in a month.
That one took close to like 6. It took about double what I expected it to. The remodel went smooth. Like, I got it. The remodel took about 7 weeks. I got it on the market. And then I think it took about almost 4 months between, and that's why I didn't take that first offer, right? Because they were like 3 months out. Like, hey, we got to list our house, sell our house, all that stuff. But then with the cancels and all that, it kind of worked out. So I think it was about a 6-month process overall, which is long. It's not what you want. But at least it was still profitable, though. Like, I got really close to the price that I was shooting for, and it worked out. So it just was a slower, frustrating process, but it worked out. So
for sure. This is going to be your 4th flip. Am I correct?
Yeah. So I'm on the 4th.
Awesome. Congrats on that.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
So with, going on your 4th flip, what are some of the beginner mistakes you see people just coming in the game? What do you see them do, and what could help them, not do those mistakes?
There's a lot. So there's a lot of decisions. Like, I don't know, things like what I was just saying. I didn't take the first offer, and then it kind of bit me in the butt, but then it worked out. So there's like decisions that come that have to do with the transaction itself. But when you're working on the houses, that's also extremely important. Managing your budget. That's something I would say is important. So this is my 4th one, but since I've been doing real estate, I've also been kind of working with my mom. She's been training me, showing me how to do this. So she's been doing one, I've been doing one, like we've been doing them together kind of. I've been helping her with hers and learning a lot. So I've done a little bit more than 4, like just to get the experience and stuff. But it's really important to not go over a certain price point in your budget. Mm-hmm. Now, it doesn't have to be like out to a T, like I'm going to spend exactly this, but don't overdo it. Like, don't overkill. You know what I mean? Because some people think they need to just completely do everything, spend all this money, and all of a sudden their 80,000 project turns out to be 120, and then now they've got a super low margin, and the house doesn't sell, and then they maybe make $5,000 and they thought they were going to make 50 or something. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I would just say manage your money, have a plan for what you're doing, because just know from the beginning, like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to redo the kitchen. I'm going to use these kind of countertops. It's going to cost this much. I'm going to use these cabinets. It's going to cost this much, because there's a whole different variety of finishes, designer brands, stuff like that you can use. You know what I mean? So basically don't overdo it when you're doing that remodel, because you could easily get caught up in it. Like, that's something that I kind of struggle with that, because I'm like, I want to do everything. I want to do this. I want to put in new turf in the backyard. I want to do this. And it's like, do you really need to put in turf when you've got this really nice grass? No. So how about I save myself $6,000 and don't do that? So that's what I would say. Just manage your money so you don't get in over your head.
So I would say definitely
Hold on. I'm having a hard time hearing you. Can you say that again?
Saying when it comes to doing flips, you gotta be real good with project management and managing your team and your contractors and everything like that. So how did you build your team? How did you find your floor guy or your drywall person, things like that? And how did you build your team, and how do you vet that contractor? Because contractors don't really get a good rep. So
no. They don't. Let me grab some water real quick here. But my office is on the end of my house that's super hot. Like, the rest of the house is cool. My office is like hot. So I'm like in here sweating when the rest of the house is cool. But I shouldn't say anything because you're sitting in the garage right now.
Oh, yeah.
It's on a summer. But so I'm super, super fortunate and lucky with having relationships with the contractors that my mom's been using for over 10 years, over maybe even 15 years, some of them. So that just fell into my lap where my mom's mentoring me in this thing. And, I have a plan for a house and she says, hey, call this guy, get your quotes, do this. And she kind of showed me that process. And I also got to witness how she did that, in her flips before I was actually doing it. I was there just kind of shadowing her. So I was lucky enough to have those contacts sort of handed to me, which is a huge advantage. However, I have also gone to other people there. I mean, some of the people she's worked with, they're great. Some of them, weren't so great. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to use this guy again because it didn't really work out the first time. I'm going to try this person. It's really all about finding somebody else that's used someone before. When you just blindly start calling people, it usually doesn't work out too well. Mm-hmm. So building relationships with other home flippers in the area is a good thing to do. And a lot of times they don't want to share who they use because you're going to be taking up, they've said they've only got one reliable tile guy. Why would they want to give you the information? Because now you're going to take up their guy, the time that they need to. But find somebody that's nice and they'll share it. Because I've done that. I go into flips all the time and I'll be like, wow, they did a nice job. Like on the, the stucco on the wall, it's super smooth, whatever. They did a great job. And I'll call the agent and I'll say, hey, would you mind sharing, your drywall guy, your paint guy, your stucco guy, whoever does all that in your house? And a lot of people will be super friendly about it. And they'll say, yeah, for sure, man, I'll send you the contact, and then trying them next time. I wouldn't just like go on the internet and start calling people. I would just say finding people through other house flippers, essentially. That's my recommendation. Find someone that's been hired before, finished a job and a reasonable price, all that. Don't just take like Google's word for it. You know what I mean? Like, for sure. Build it through other people's relationships, I would say.
For the people that are like on the ropes about quitting their job to go full-time real estate, because you see all this stuff on HGTV and that motivates people to go out and pursue that. Yeah. How much would you say they need to get started, and what kind of funding options are there for those that don't have the money to get started?
So first, I'll just tackle just regular real estate, just in case somebody wants to say, hey, I'm going to go be a realtor. I would say at least you need to have, now obviously cost of living is different everywhere. Everyone's got a different situation. So I'll put it in terms of like months. I would say at least 4 to 5 months of money to survive on. Because if you just quit your job, like let's just say you just quit, I'm done. Then you go to real estate school. It's also different in every state and everything, but let's just say it takes you 2 months to pass it. You get your license. Then it takes you, a month and a half to find your first lead that you actually close. They buy a house. You're not getting a paycheck for I didn't get my first paycheck for 7 months, So like I went through some money that I had saved up, and luckily I had that money, or I would have just had to get a different job. So I would recommend, I'd say at least 4 months, 4 to 6 months money in the bank to just 100% switch into real estate. Now, if you want to transition and maybe do like part-time real estate and do it that way and maybe work part-time at a different job, you could do that. But I think it's good to just focus 100%. When people do the part-time thing, it takes just almost double the time, if not triple. And sometimes you don't have the opportunities to do the lead generation. So I'd say save up the money and go all in. That would be my recommendation. So that's the realtor side of things. And on the flipping side of things, I wouldn't even really recommend flipping houses if you haven't been a realtor first. I'll just throw that out there. So I would say start by being a realtor. Like my mom's philosophy, I told her from the beginning, I was like, I want to flip houses. And she's like, that's great, but I'm not going to even help you until you do at least 2 years of regular real estate. Like, it was good though. It's a good philosophy, because it's just like I said earlier, one of the biggest mistakes people make is not knowing the market, right? Mm-hmm. The only way you learn a market is by being a realtor, selling homes, viewing homes, going and previewing 4 or 5 homes a day in the area that you want to work in. So you see what sells and how much it sells for. So save up your money, 4 to 6 months. That's how you become a realtor. Then I would say you need to be doing regular real estate. Like my mom said, at least, for a year or so before you just dive into it. So you know what you're doing. As far as the flipping goes, though, the funds needed for it, there's a lot of different options. The most common is just using hard money. So you're borrowing from a lender at a very high interest rate, but they're very easy to get qualified with. I mean, sometimes it's as simple as literally calling them, sending them an email with the address, telling them your budget, what you want to do. They'll look at the comps. They'll be like, all right, sounds good. They fund in less than 24 hours. Like they've got a lot of money to work with. So you pay a lot, but it's easy to get the money. So hard money is the way to go usually for most people. I mean, other people maybe borrow money from their family or from some other big investors, but commonly people just go to a hard money lender and do it that way. They sometimes will do 100% funding, which I have no experience doing 100% funding. I don't know how that works, to be honest. I've heard of it. I haven't really seen it happen. Usually they'll want like 20% down. Some will do 15, 10. So anywhere from like 10 to 20% down of the purchase price is what you're going to need to get that hard money loan. And with that 10 to 20% down, they also offer financing for the construction. So they can wrap that on top of it. And every lender you talk to, they're going to have different fees. They're going to have different down payments, different interests. So it's all about just getting out there and talking to different hard money lenders in your area and seeing what you can get and how much money it's going to take. You know, there's not really just one answer like, hey, you need 50 grand and you can start doing this. No, it's because, I mean, some flippers are buying houses that are 100,000 and some flippers are buying houses that are 600,000. So everybody's down payment is different. You got to have money for your interest payments every month. That's important to understand. So those interest payments are pretty big. They're usually like right now about 10 to 12%. So it's not like a normal mortgage. It's almost quadruple at this point because the rates are so low right now for a normal mortgage. So expect to pay a lot, which means you want to get it done very quickly. But you got to have the down payment, the money to make the interest, and you either save up the money yourself for the construction or they can usually fund it for you too. But that's just more money that you're paying interest on. So whatever works for you, everyone's got a different situation. But hard money is the common way to get started.
Awesome. So last question, you hear all these horror stories and, with flipping homes, you have liability and all that. So what are some ways you protect yourselves and you suggest other people protect themselves when, ever doing a flip?
So there's a few things you have to worry about. Quite a few. Just like anything else these days, everybody has to do quite a bit of CYA. You know what I mean? Cover yourself. So it's just because, unfortunately, there's a lot of greedy people out there. They're out to get you, and people that think they can sue you for this and that. And the problem is they can sometimes. First of all, here's one great way to not get into trouble is just be ethical. That's a great way to just start. So whether you're in regular real estate or whether you're flipping homes, treat people the way you want to be treated. It's so simple. Golden rule. It's like I deal with a lot of realtors that are just not so friendly. They act like they're lawyers. They want to argue about everything. Like, especially in negotiating, it's like, why would I do this? No, we're not doing that. Absolutely not. Hang up on you. It's like, what? It's like, I'm just trying to put a deal together, man. Like, we're all like trying to, yes, we're trying to negotiate, but we're not like enemies. So treat people the way you want to be treated. Be ethical when you're doing transactions. Don't lie about anything. Don't lie about how much money you put into a house. Don't lie about why, when you're buying it, if someone says, oh, are you buying it for yourself or this or that? Don't lie about it. Be like, no, I'm an investor. I'm probably going to flip this house. You know what I mean? Like, you got to be honest about, because that's one way to just get in trouble. Second of all, when you do purchase a house, I would recommend, I'm definitely not like a legal expert or throw that out there. No more than I do, to be honest, but like buying your house in an LLC is important. So instead of, hey, Michael Booker owns this house, no, the Booker team LLC owns this house. So if something does go wrong for whatever reason, whether it's to do with the house or me personally, that house isn't really attached to me. You know what I mean? The LLC puts a layer of protection there, not a gap. You don't want a gap. You want a layer of protection. So that's one other thing I would do. That's two things right there. Be ethical. Put your house in an LLC when you're buying. And let's see here. Another thing is make sure the work is being done right in your house. Now, I'm not going to say like every person that every flipper used is 100% licensed and bonded and this and that. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're a handyman that just knows a little bit about this, a little bit about that, and they're fully competent of doing the work. But, therefore maybe they don't have a license or their own company. If that's the case, just make sure your guys know what they're doing. Vet these people out. Like I said, you better be talking to other people that have used them before you hire them to make sure their work is good quality. For example, I'll just give a quick story. Like someone I know that flips houses, it's a friend of a friend anyway. Someone just bought his flip house, and I don't know if you see like on a tile floor, do you ever see like a lip on the tile, meaning like it's not 100% even. The grout line is like this a little bit, so you might get your foot caught on it every once in a while. So this lady bought this house and moved in, and like 6 months later, she just tripped on the little lip of a tile. I mean, there's lips on tile pretty much everywhere. Like, they shouldn't be bad, but you're going to find a little one here and there, And so this lady tripped, bruised her knee really bad, apparently had to go to the hospital or something, but all it was a bad bruise. Now she's suing that flipper because of that tile lip, like 6 months after owning the house, coming after him like, hey, because your guy did crappy work in this house, I just fell and almost had a really serious incident. It's not that serious, but I'm going to sue you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So just be careful with, the work. Just make sure it's good quality, put out a good product, and you should be good,
For sure.
That's about it.
To wrap things up and end it on a good note, real quickly, why do you think people should get into flipping houses, and what for you is the greatest thing about it?
So there's a lot of reasons, but I'll try and keep it short and positive. So like you said, or like I said, actually in the beginning, is I'm really a big fan of the work you put in is what you get out of it. And it's the same for real estate and getting into flipping. It's like you work hard, you're gonna do well. You don't work hard, you're not gonna do well. That's what I liked about it. And you're in control of your schedule. You're in control of what you're doing. Like you definitely have to work hard, but you can also be flexible when you need to be flexible. When you need to take time off, you take the time off. If you've got family things you got to deal with, you can deal with them. Like you're not being told what to do 100% of the time, which I like, which is a little different than the Marine Corps. It's kind of like the polar opposite. Like I went from that to, okay, now I'm in charge and I'm going to work hard, but I'm going to do it when I want to.
Exactly.
And because of that too, just the opportunity is so big. It's such a big opportunity. Like you can grow so much. There's so much you can do in real estate and flipping houses. The regular transactions, getting into super, luxury homes where the transactions are a lot bigger and the paychecks are a lot bigger. Getting into the flipping where you're getting big chunks of cash. I mean, it's a lot more responsibility when you're, managing these projects and stuff, but there's big chunks of cash at the end of it if you do it right. And that flexible schedule that goes along with it. You can get even past that, get into development, get into commercial real estate. There's just so many options just by having a license and getting into it that the possibilities are endless. I mean, you could start when you're 20 years old. By the time you're 30, you could be doing something completely different within real estate. By the time you're 40, you could be in a whole different area of real estate again. And another time when you're 50 or whatever, how long you want to be in real estate, there's always something different you can do, or you can always just do more. Whether it's 4 flips a year, maybe my goal is 8 flips a year next year, like getting a bigger team and doing 24 flips. So there's just always more you can do. And it comes down to putting in the work and as much as you want to, which is what I like about it.
For sure. Well, thanks a lot for your time, brother.
Yeah, man.
Like I said, thank you for taking the time out of your day to, educate the masses. And good luck for your next flip. And I hope you get that 8 flip a year and get to that goal.
Appreciate it, man. Good luck to you too. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye.